Hello everybody and welcome to the New Game Plus section, not the Newcomer section, which is a new difficulty level for tiny babies, nor the standard, but New Game Plus, which is available after you've beaten the main game, and is a sort of extra challenge for experienced Hyper Light Drifters. We're going to be playing this through as Megabacter. It is a really interesting new game mode. Just for changing a few things, they really changed the gameplay around, so I'm looking forward to showing it off. Two things. First, I'm going to be skipping most of the cinematics, and this intro scene is exactly the same, so we'll be skipping that. Second is, the only thing that really changes around mostly are navigating trap sections and enemy fights. And so exploration is going to be sped up to 2x speed, just to move things in a timely fashion. I held off on showing this off until right now, and the reason for that is, as you can see, you start off the game with all of your dash and sword skills unlocked from the word go. The downside to that is, as you can see in the top left-hand corner when this map goes away, maybe you can't, you have 2 health, and you can never increase them. You can buy additional health packs to replenish your health in case you get, 1 taken off or something like that. But here, notice, if you're dumb like me and don't navigate well, it's easy to die just through regular navigation. Now, I said that this is just a few basic changes, but it really does change the way you have to play the game. Gone are the days of being forgiven for making some dumb little mistakes. You've really got to plan every battle, and instead of the way that you might think of this affecting gameplay, in other words, making you more passive, I found it made me much more aggressive when I played battles. I didn't want to wait around a lot for enemies to come after me. I really needed to be aggressive and put them down fast. Now we're going to get into that more as it comes, but here is our first major battle. And you can see I'm slowing things down to regular speed for it. But with all of the skills that you have, it becomes just it's really fun to fight these battles that way. I'll say that. You really start to feel sort of like a virtuoso almost. You have all of your abilities, especially early on. You can't help but remember how you played the game from the first time, and how the battles were sort of these long, drawn-out affairs where you do a lot of just dodging and waiting and sometimes running out of special meters, compared to now where you're just basically samurai man. Cool. Saw me do a little pause skip there to get through some of the dialogue. I'm going to be even less completionist than I am in the main game about this. I'm going to be trying to, I will certainly get all the major modules, because I want to do every bit of every section. Cards on the table, I'm probably not going to do the arena, because I actually tried that a bit on New Game Plus, and it gave me trouble in the regular game, so, New Game Plus arena would be pretty bananas. If I can pull it off, I'll show it. Odds are bad, I'll say. You really forget how much of this first area is exploration until we go back. I promise we're going to get into some more battles here. Slowing down to see them instantly. So, a lot of enemies do 2 damage, not so much in this first area, but we'll see that later. And a lot of bosses in particular, a lot of, many, if not all of their hits end up doing 2 damage to you. So that means a lot of boss fights in this mode have to be perfect. If one of those big jumping beams hits us, it is just over. And so, that's one of the few areas why I might be a bit more conservative. But you learn the exact combinations to take them down. See, there you go. I was insufficiently conservative there. If I end up redoing battles a whole bunch, then I'm going to edit out some of the failures, basically. But I will, if it only takes me 2 or 3 times, just like that, I'll leave them in. What I did want to show to you is, I think this game is pretty uniquely appropriate for New Game Plus, because a lot of the save games they give you relate to fights. Getting into or leaving big fights generally gives you a good save game. And so it's not too onerous to do these sections over and over and over again. And believe me, the first time you do New Game Plus, unless you're like a way better player than I am, you will end up doing these many, many times. But it really helps you hone your skill. As I said, in the main game, there's kind of a lot of forgiveness, I guess you could say, where things that you really... mistakes, basically, you can just absorb a couple hit points and keep fighting. Now, it's also easy in the main game to get snowballed by your mistakes, to get chain locked or something like that, so it's not like the main game is obviously the easiest thing, but here you just get no second chances, basically. If you go down, that's the whole ball of wax. I think I'm probably only going to do 4 to 5 New Game Plus videos. I'm going to try to tackle one section per video. So here you can see some of the techniques we saw refined in the arena, where the big jumping beams go down in one gun attack and then one heavy swipe, or one small swipe and one big attack, something like that. Any of those are sufficient. Health packs don't play quite as big a role as they do, obviously, because there's not much health to heal. But you do have that one. It's not. It would be very different if they gave you 1 hit point. That would be. I think it would probably be too much at that point. I continue to be absolutely awful at deflecting shots. I have no idea why I'm this bad. There we go. Especially these guys, which are supposed to be like the slow, easy ones to deflect. I don't know. I've noticed in some games, if there's like a very tight window, like shots come at you fast, and you only have a very small window to deflect, I actually end up being better at that than I do at these slow ones. I always want to like twitchily press too fast or something like that. Those little critters will get you. I did huge moron there and didn't see that thing to shoot. Basically, I'm going to try to edit out all deaths to exactly the place that I was before. So, there's a lot of comparisons that have been made and will continue to be made to Dark Souls when it comes to this game. And one of those has got to be the difficulties of the boss versus the difficulties of the main game, to where even sort of veteran players of Dark Souls, well, I guess not veteran players, but even people that are comfortable enough with Bloodborne and Dark Souls to just be running around and killing enemies and all, have a big problem with the bosses, who tend to be extreme challenges, and that's certainly the case in New Game Plus mode here on Megadrifts as well. I saw on the main menu there is now a boss rush, so I'll have to be showing that off in a bonus video too. I think I slowed this down just because I was proud that I managed it first try. After doing the bonus section of the western area, I guess I'm pretty good at drifting these days. I'm not sure why this is, but certain areas in this game, I can map out in my mind where everything is a lot easier than others. For instance, the northern area, I was always able to map out very well. And it took me going through this eastern area probably 2 or 3 times before I got like a really clear impression of where everything was. Not bad at all. If you see me do something what looks like first time in this, be assured that I really did do it first try. Again, I'll edit out some deaths if it's really like repetitive or something, but I will never make it look like I was cooler than I really was by editing out a death. Certainly I'm not as cool as this cool guy up here. Even in New Game Plus, he is the coolest. I do know that I can, I want to see that big worm that he fought. I do know that I can beat the game on New Game Plus, which, theoretically, I guess, puts me in some elite category of hyper-light drifters, although I don't think it's really that bad. Again, the freedom with which you get retries, if nothing else, you can learn a battle well enough make that not a problem. Might have looked like I was just idling there, but let me assure you, I was taking an extremely important drink of Coke. So let's talk shopping for New Game Plus. Obviously, it is it's important as in the regular game. The difference is because you don't have to buy any drifting or any sword upgrades, you run out of stuff to buy way before you run out of pieces of 8. And so that's one reason that I'm not going to be quite as hardcore about completionism or collecting everything, because it really does not matter. You can, in New Game Plus, your negative health, I believe, is actually given to you by that unique black coat you're wearing. And so while it's possible for you to get other sets of gear and change up your sword and change up your buddy, your mechanical buddy, you're never able to change out of the black cloak. I think that's the case. I don't know if it's supposed to represent anything like that. It is certainly an elite challenge for players. Although, not as hard as beating the soccer goblin in the fair fight. I haven't shown him off yet. Don't worry, he's coming. And also, huge thanks to whoever wrote the Steam guide for how to beat the soccer goblin easily. I'll have to look up your name and specifically thank that drifter, because he is the true hero. That dash and slice is just so great. I was saying before I didn't use the dash when you push enemies quite enough, but I used it a couple times in this episode. I don't know, it just doesn't work well for me. I'm sure it's my problem, but whatever. It's kind of funny seeing these episodes done quickly. It just reminds you of the structure of the levels. I was saying, I'm so bad with grenades. I was saying that the northern area appeared to me, it was very easy for me to understand the layout of the western and eastern areas in particular. Took a couple places. I feel like I know where everything is in the Water Temple now, but even after I beat it the first time, if I was going back and forth for stuff, I wasn't quite sure where everything was. But I got a handle on it now. Just these circular areas. I know they're not really hard and anybody to have decent navigating. I do remember back in there's a map of the underground, but it's not worth anything from my perspective. It can vaguely show you where some of the major modules are, and that's about the only good I ever got out of it. I don't know if they intended it for it to be hard to read. It's supposed to show the limitations of your mapping technology or something like that, or if they genuinely thought it was a good map, in which case, I'm sorry to say, Debs, I did not think that it was.
As much fun as I could when I was stuck in this place. As hard as I could when I was stuck in this place. I dogged as many chicks as I could when I was stuck in this place.
I keep thinking that there's a slowdown in fraps whenever I enter into, normal 1 speed when I start to enter in these big fight arenas. See, there's that pushback. It only does 1 damage. Now if I'd hit him into a wall and into another enemy, it would have been, a different story. But, I didn't. One of the reasons I think I really like New Game Plus is the main game conveys this fairly well, too, that you really need to be all about mobility, and you're not, tanky, you don't block, you don't really dodge, except a little tiny bit, I guess. But you're just, you're a fast-moving, fragile target. And so that's why I appreciate New Game Plus, because it cranks that up to 11. You really can't take any damage at all. And so you have to be all the faster. You have to use all the skills that you had before. I wouldn't even, in theory, be opposed to a super challenge, one where you died in 1 hit to everything. My guess is they tried that and it was too annoying. Just because literally playing flawlessly is kind of a drain. Oh, what do you got? So we've already got enough major modules now to enter into the boss arena. 15 minutes in, and we're getting close on to 2 videos of the normal game. That's what 2x speed exploration will do for me, I guess. I do kind of go around and sort of try to get everything, but that's just because, you know, resources continue to be important even in these later modes. We will, of course, be getting every gun upgrade, both of the grenades and all the health packs, but even with all that, you know, because we don't have to get anything else, it doesn't hardly take any time to get enough. I will also say, in terms of leveling up, in terms of power, one of my very favorite things in a game is, I mean, for sure in Hyper Light Drifter you get better abilities as you go on. You know, you could only drift once in the beginning of the vanilla game. You didn't have some of your neat sword dashes and swipes and stuff like that. But when I started to do this LP, it had been a couple months since I had played the game, and I'm really glad I actually did it that way because in miniature, you know, we got a sort of a trip back up the old difficulty curve, where I started off being not as, you know, when I first started the LP, I was not at the skill level I needed to be, probably to even beat the vanilla game, let alone New Game Plus. And just remembering how everything works, figuring out the systems, getting better at anticipating enemy movement, getting better at not panicking and drifting too early, at, you know, looking for where they're going to go, at learning the game, learning the systems, that's the kind of stuff you really appreciate it. Hyper Light Drifter is great at that. There's something to be said for playing a game and, you know, getting enough gear that you're just dead some god tier at the end or something like that. Yeah, I know there are skills technically that you learn, say your Diablo, Grim Dawn, another game that I played it. But really, I mean, you know, in those games by design, if you were starting out fresh-faced, you would literally have, I won't say literally, I'm sure there's some madman that's done this, but you basically have no chance against the final bosses, right? Because your numbers just weren't big enough. You needed bigger numbers for attack damage and protection and all that stuff. I say that, you know, secure in the knowledge that somewhere out there somebody's done a level 1 playthrough of Diablo 3 or something like that, but let's let the madman have their thing. But in games like this, I mean, I really think if you wanted to, and this might be an interesting challenge playthrough actually, to go through and beat the game without getting any upgrades at all, no additional health packs, no dash skills, no sword skills. I might actually want to try that. I probably would edit out everything except some of the bigger fights and boss fights or something like that, just because the big problem I would see with it would just kind of be annoying to play through. If you think about like the big crystal golems with all of their health, you could for sure whittle them down by just attacking with regular attacks, but it would kind of take a while, and if you have to get through the whole level where you're fighting, you know, whatever, 30 of the things, then it might get a little tedious to watch, but it sure would be fun, and I know it would be possible, and more so possible than those Diablo things I talked about. One of the things that the dev team was really passionate about, that I've seen in interviews that they talked a lot about, was their ability to convey both mechanics and story wordlessly, basically. I mean, there are a few translatable monoliths, but those are essentially extraneous to the story they want to tell, which I think is interesting. It just means that there's a self-contained story within Hyper Light Drifter, right? I mean, they add extra details, and we've been examining those as we sort of go through and you know, comb through each of the areas, as we read the monolith text and stuff like that. But there's sort of a self-contained story within just the action of the game itself. You know, we're this empowered, quick but very sick individual who is going through as a superficial resemblance to some of the old people from this world, wherever it is, in a central city. And we're just kind of learning more about what's out there. It's a journey of exploration. Now, again, there's, we don't know where our stuff came from. We started in the northern area, which is interesting. We were brought back to town. But we started, out in the wilderness, so presumably we've been doing this for some time, but we're really getting centralized in the main city and then exploring outwards and learning what's out there. And most of it's nasty, because this is a darker, Dark Souls-y kind of world. I'm sorry about that. I guess I died there. I don't know. Or maybe I had to reload or something like that. Anyway, and so what's interesting is, while we're getting better, while we're getting more skilled, we're also, getting these fever dreams of this black upside down rain, and we're having blood, come out of us, and I feel there's two kinds of conflicts going on here, and the one is external. It relates to us exploring the world, mastering it, dealing with what seemed like the remnants of a battle that's happened already, which is interesting to me. It doesn't exactly feel like we're preventing a main attack on the city or something, although, that's possible. I don't really get that. I kind of get the idea that most of the action has already happened, which is also sort of Dark Soulsian, and we're sort of picking through the ruins of this place. And so are other people, but they're also chased away. We met some people that were looting in the arena. I'm not sure exactly what the cool dude is doing, but he seems to be on a quest sort of like ours. And so, we're out here for reasons of our own, and other people are too. And it's those internal reasons that are just, no matter how fast we run or how good we are, we can't overcome our sickness. We're kind of the Doc Holliday of characters, if you will. It's really interesting, and I think I mentioned, and if not, here it is, that one of the developers was suffering from a pretty severe, I believe it was a heart condition. And it was under the fear and the influence of that condition that he actually made this game. So it is interesting, right? I mean, we've gotten flashes of this black, sort of gooey, nebulous adversary, and we only get them when we collect enough stuff from the outside. So there's some connection between our inside conflict and our outside, but every time we even get a glimpse of that adversary, we're just defeated, with no choice, with no chance of coming back or anything like that. So it's interesting. I would call it somber in a way, which really it clashes with the aesthetic of the rest of the game, which is bright and well designed. Really, it's really a beautiful game, but none of it really seems super depressing. I'd say the most depressing would be the crystalline area, if only because everybody's sort of trapped, and you can tell that there was a great calamity there. I guess all the areas are sad in their own way. I mean, you've got the stoats getting poached in this area. You've got the religious conflicts up north or whatever. But I don't know. It all looks violent, certainly, and not particularly happy, but not sad either. Just I don't know. I don't know exactly what the. I'm sure there's some German word for what the atmosphere would be. Certainly storied, and you get the sense that if there was some major conflict that was going to decide the fate of the world, it was probably whatever ended up happening to those titans. But the crystal guy stopped one of them, and the other ones just sort of maybe stopped operating for some reason. It's hard to say exactly at this point in time, if we know anything else about them, but that sort of decided the fate of the world, it seems. That refugees from a whole bunch of different areas were able to congregate in the central city. They were able to have a little society there. I mean, they've got shops and soccer goblins and everything that you need for a civilization. And so what's left is the individual fates and passions of people involved. That's what we're caught up in our own business, which is certainly interesting. at least at this point in time in the game, we haven't really met anybody else that we're, I'm rooting for the cool guy, and, it seems like he's facing some of the same things that we are, but it's only suggested that we work together in the vaguest of senses. He's on his journey, we're on ours, and it's clear that if he's able to help us, he will, because, we saw him do that. Sorry for the cut there, nothing interesting happened. I just went down and got the health bar down there, health box down there. But, we don't really confer. We're not going to do things together. There's no sense that we ought to work together. Now, whether that's out of some shared history, whether that's for a different reason. See, I tried to do the push attack on that alchemy toad there, and it just flat out didn't take. I don't know. Disappointing. But then I did a push on that frog, and pushed him right off, so I guess it's good for something. In terms of the individual stories in each of the 4 sub-areas as well. Well, I gotta plug this, sorry for a second here. This area I included, I think, all of the tests that I had, if only to show that sometimes these sub-areas can actually end up being more troublesome than anything else, really, than even the bosses. Just because health is so tight, and scripting is sometimes a little funny, and it just leaves you stranded like that. You'll get caught in strange places in New Game Plus. Places that really didn't even give you too much trouble back in the main game. Here, there's this constant wave of the little jumping beans down from south, and they'll continuously spawn until you take out everybody else, so they're dangerous for sure. But everybody else is also long range, so you're really dancing around a lot of different obstacles here. You've got to manage that. That one frog guy always kind of jumps in the water and then jumps back out later, so it's hard to know where he's going to come from. Just a lot of complications going on. You can see until I killed him, and you were just going to get 2 small jumping beans forever coming from the south. And again, I'm sometimes going to leave out monotonous deaths. I just let this in. Object lesson. Frustration, I guess. If dying in the same area a whole bunch of times is the kind of thing that irritates you, then New Game Plus is probably not for you. The one thing I will say about the rest of Hyper Light Drifter is it really is quite forgiving. It sure doesn't seem like it when you're playing it first. I remember playing in the very first time I picked it up, and I was playing in this area. I don't even think I was this far yet, and I was like, well, I may not be good enough at games to actually get anywhere in this, which is sort of the wall that people run against in, Dark Souls and Bloodborne, to further comparisons. There's a piece of writing advice that's commonly passed around, which is, are you telling the most interesting day in a character's life, or are you telling about the most interesting day in a world, or in a situation? Are you giving us the most interesting, the most dynamic day? And if not, why not? What's interesting is, I feel like that advice is commonly interpreted to mean always tell people the exact most interesting time that something is happening, and I don't think that's actually what the advice means. It just is basically saying, if you are not giving us the most dynamic, the most active, the most adventurous day that there is, you need to have some other reason to tell the story. And that's where I see the benefit of these sort of post-apocalypse stories. We'll come back to this after Toad Boss here. So, bosses, as I mentioned, are particularly troublesome in New Game Plus, just on account of you basically have to play them perfectly. Now, Toad Boss is, no great shakes. We've seen before, especially getting the gun upgrade helps with him. But if you're going to be a dummy and zip right into those, this is the kind of thing you wouldn't even notice in the regular game, because you'd you'd take 2 hits and you'd go, ow, but then you'd continue right along. Not an option here, sadly. So it's actually possible to get through Toad Boss's fight without learning, exactly how he does everything. Again, I think there's some things. I think if you run into him, that only does 1 damage, and obviously the little jumping beans he spits out only do 1 damage. But him jumping in to use 2 damage, him throwing one of those jars at you is 2 damage. I dig his stoat necklace he's got going on there. Obviously, what you want out of him is for him to hit those guys. I thought it was interesting. I didn't know that this was true. That anytime he's hit by an exploding jumping bean, he falls over and basically resets his pattern, which is terrifically useful. It's funny that he spits out 3 jumping beans when he's doing badly, because that actually makes it a bit easier for you. It gives you more chances to stun him. And that's very bad for him, and is in fact the end. There's odd amounts of invincibility frames during those moments there. Sometimes, the enemies will just destroy itself and you'll be in invincibility frames during sort of cutscenes. Sometimes, however, they'll just persist until the exact second the cutscene's over, and if they're jumping right at you, then there's nothing you can do to avoid damage, and you just eat it. Sorry. Anyway, I was talking a little bit earlier about these post-apocalyptic games, and I would consider this to be a post-apocalypse, I think. Obviously, there's still some hope. The center of the center city is still more or less left intact. There's still adventuring heroes that go out, but it looked like there was quite a lot that was going on. You had 4 major civilizations, and they're all pretty much wiped away at this point through their various catastrophes. I say all. We'll see what's going on in the south. We've seen 3 examples of that going on so far, and not to say that it's going to be exactly the same or whatever. Something might be going on in the south that's different. So we've only got 1 extra place to go. I always forget about this one until it's a bit late in the game. This is the 1 key door, and it's easy to forget because it actually happens before you get a single key, which is a little unfortunate. In the lower reaches here. I also apparently didn't 2x speed up this thing. Maybe I just figured it was all this battle down here. That's fine. We'll take a little battle royale. So the nice thing about seeing post-apocalyptic genres is, again, if you're going to do a post-apocalypse, then technically exactly when everything is going down, like the day of, ends up being, probably the most exciting day in that universe, because that's the day that all of the titans fell and all the civilizations crumbled, etc., etc. But the stories afterwards can be much smaller, but much more significant. Smaller numbers of people can have a much greater impact on society and what happens, If you want to do your particular thing, whether it's hunting after major modules, taking down bosses, releasing those big pillars or whatever, then there's less standing in your way than if we had to, say, destroy 4 entire civilizations to lower those pillars. That would be quite a different task. Probably unaccomplishable by just one little guy like us, and if it was, then that would of course be a horrific kind of thing to happen. The theory, at least with a lot of the zombie apocalypse things with The Walking Dead and so on, is individual personality quirks and people that you can see now become much more important, become writ large, so to speak. You can see their full implications. You can get the full Bioshock implications, whatever kind of person that is. What if, a whole civilization was based on being a jock or whatever, I don't know. You also get some interesting examples of, you know, the reasons why people persist. Basically, it's past the end of the world. You know, there's not much to save in terms of civilization. There's a central city and whatever, but as I've said, they don't seem to be particularly threatened. I think with the Titans down, that's mostly, you know, taken care of. So, what is there left to do after the end? After the big story's been told? Why persist? Why go on? In our case, it appears to be a simple drive for self-preservation, although there may be a deeper element to it. You know, who knows if the sickness that affects us and affects the cool guy, and potentially the buffalo in the arena, I guess, although we never saw him coughing blood, is, you know, emblematic of something greater or some greater issue. If it's truly just a sickness within ourselves, then you wonder why we see it personified in a particular form like that other people also see. We know that at least the cool guy and the buffalo seem to have seen, you know, similar gross gribblies. Anyway, points to ponder, and we are now fast approaching the final challenge in this area here. Final challenges are always a little fun. Believe you me, the eastern area, the western forests is just a joy and a half to navigate on New Game Plus, where a single hit of spikes kills you. Oh, it's horrible. I probably spent an hour on that thing, which is, believe you me, more time than you want to spend. 3 hit points is a super inconvenient number for an enemy to have, which I'm sure they did it just so you couldn't, you know, just take them out with one of your abilities, but I don't like it, is all I'm saying. So this first level went pretty much without a hitch. I died a couple times to Toad Boss, but honestly, 2 or 3 deaths for a New Game Plus boss isn't bad, even if it is Toad Boss. I had a few areas where I died a few times, you know, particularly that one right before Toad Boss, but never really got hardcore stuck anywhere. It just takes a little persistence and the willingness to learn how to basically play a new game. You know, as I said before, you're much less defensive, you use many more skills. And unfortunately, some of that bled over into how I play in regular game mode, because obviously if there's a way to play in New Game Plus, you know, you can also play that way in regular mode and win just as easily. So you're not seeing quite as profound a gameplay shift as the first time I played New Game Plus, although some of it's still there. I will say I played way more defensively before I played New Game Plus the first time. Go down and step on it. Down and step on it. There's the boy. Yeah, learning how to play in this new way was a real eye-opener for me. I almost wish it was, like, required in a way. I think those trials by fire, especially in games like these, end up being extremely helpful. Alright, let's roll. This is really the last fight. Eastern area. Having the upgraded pistol, even if it's just the pistol, is just really nice. It's just so much to keep track of. It'd be hard to avoid all of that. I said you always want to keep enough special meter that you can zip away. Buddy, you are going to need to. Oh, I thought that guy was going to get him, and I was so busy paying attention I didn't notice that other one. Alright. Well, that's it. That's his contribution to the Let's Play. It's about on track. I think I actually paused and turned off friend notifications for this. Speaking of inconvenient numbers of hit points, the old 1-2 punch isn't good enough for those guys. A lot of fights very cleanly go one way or another. By that, what I mean is either you are doing good at taking out enemies and not particularly challenged because the field is open, and everything's great, or you just get stampeded to death. It's sometimes it's a game of really hair-raising fights. I've certainly had my share of those, but oftentimes it's just if you do something good early, then something good later will happen, and vice versa. There we go. There's still some guys that appear after we grab the. This is the diamond gun, which I still haven't used very much in the main game. Maybe I'll use it more in New Game Plus, but odds are bad. Hey, fellas. Sure would be ashamed to die here. But I don't. So that is that. That's the first area. Just about everything that we want, I think. It's all the major modules and many of the pieces of 8. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to tackle the northern area next time, I imagine. And you'll just, get to see what life's like for a 2 hit points weak man. Thanks for watching along, and hope to join you next time. Thanks. Bye.